thank you so much, Stephen, for agreeing to be on the podcast. You're in the band Quo'd on the drums, or as
Yes.
you call yourself, Steve Coughlin. That seems to be a thing with tribute bands, sort of using the surname, perhaps to denote the content that you play, because Quo has so many different eras.
Yes, possibly. I don't. I think I put that on the website, and I don't think that we've referred to it since actually. But yes, we are a four-piece, Quo band of the era of the early 70s. Things might change as we move on forward, but certainly now we haven't got any keyboards, and that's the era of Quo that we play and that we love.
I'm guessing because you've stipulated quite defiantly on your website from Piledriver to rocking all over the world. What's wrong with whatever you want, or just supposing never too late?
Well, we do play whatever you want. We do play songs from other albums. I think certainly when I joined the band, it was about, there's so many bands out there, and it was about creating that kind of identity. But it's not exclusive, and we do other things. And as I say, moving forward, we are discussing all the time of other things we can do. And then maybe, Jamie, I'll have to go back and change the website.
It does sound like that. You are playing at the Quo convention at Butlins in Minehead in September. Is that your first time doing that?
Yes, absolutely it is, and we're very, very excited. Very excited.
Well, you've announced that you're playing the Hello album in full. Um, why?
Why have we announced that, or why are we doing it?
Why are you doing it?
Well, we're doing it because we are an unknown quantity here. That we have to remember that. So no one really from the Quo world not many people have seen us. We've only done the Diamond Day in Mansfield twice. So we also wanted to do something special, and we've performed the Hello album before at one of the Diamond Days, and we're on first on the Sunday. An unknown band thought it would be quite a good idea to do something special like that, and it's not going to hurt by announcing it before, so that people will know what's coming up. So it was really, what I really wanted to do was, in my dream world, that we might ever play the 2023 convention. Of course, COVID's meant that everything shifted forward a year. So the plan was in my head that if we ever got an invite to the 2023 convention, we'd do Hello, because it's 50 years. But that's kind of changed a little bit. So we thought, well, we'll do it now. But we are playing a song from Piledriver as well. So they're the main reasons for doing it. Well, number one, we love it. It's an absolute banger of an album. So many brilliant tracks. We've done it before. And of course, it's quite short, actually. Some of these albums are relatively short. So, of our 90-minute set, it's going to take up, let's say, 35, 40 minutes. And then we've got other great tracks to do.
I'm guessing that the playthrough of the Hello album doesn't include the B-side Joanne, which of course is on the deluxe and extended editions.
Yes, we're not doing the deluxe version. And actually, we've got I say quite brilliant. I think we all think our transition out of 4500 times is quite special. And your listeners might want to go back to the Gary Davis podcast that he did with you, because you've also spoken to our lead man, because he describes what we do. So yeah, it's on your Quo-Cast somewhere. But yeah, we're not doing the deluxe version.
Oh, that's it's a long time ago. I'm afraid after doing 100 episodes of this podcast, a lot of them tend to fade into one.
No doubt.
Yeah. Normally, I because of the way that I do this now, and this was very last minute because we were supposed to be doing this tomorrow. Listeners don't need to know this. Viewers don't need to know this. But normally, I ask, how did you get into Status Quo, Stephen?
Well, well, my dad, sadly, no longer with us, loved music, and I grew up listening to, it was really a kind of rock and roll, especially Beatles and stuff like that. And then he got into Status Quo. So I was born in 1973, and I remember the first time I ever heard Caroline was it was the first time that music physically had an impact on me, because it made me really excited and jumping around, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. So it was a physical kind of feeling of listening to music, and it actually kind of touching me, and so therefore I was kind of hooked on that. And I do remember one of my big regrets is I do remember being in, I think you used to be able to buy music in Boots, and I went and bought the From the Makers of album for my dad, and I had the option of kind of the cardboard version or the tin, and I didn't buy the tin, and I really regret that now because I would have inherited it anyway. So I got into Quo, and then the main album for me actually was On the Level, and I used to listen to On the Level doing my paper round around about 1985, 86. I just think it's the most amazing album, my favourite. So that's how I got into Status Quo. And then around the time I was starting to buy music, it was like Old Rag Blues and Dear John and those kind of songs. So I've got Old Rag Blues on a 7-inch vinyl, blue vinyl somewhere. I don't know exactly where. So that's how I got into Status Quo. It's really special, and especially now when my dad's not around, and he never knew he never knew about this band. And it's so sad because he would have just loved it that I was in a Status Quo tribute band. So that's how I got into Status Quo.
So when did you join Quo'd?
So I joined Quo'd in January 2018. I went for an audition to be a dep. And really, it was just a case of like, if I've got an opportunity to play early Status Quo stuff from that era, put me in and I'll do it. I'll do it unpaid. I love that kind of stuff. So we rehearsed and it went really well. And then the next day, the drummer they had quit. I don't know if he was unhappy that they kind of got a dep. So he quit. So then I was in. And that's kind of when it started. So relatively recently, if you count up 2 years of COVID being out, so 2018, the boys had been playing, I think it really started around 2015. But certainly, and I can only comment from when I've been in the band, quite quickly, and after a few months of rehearsal, I think we all felt, actually, this is pretty decent. And then we're very much indebted to the Quo legend that is Mike Grady, because I don't know how he found out about us actually, but he offered us the opportunity to play the Diamond in Mansfield, and that's how everything, like the convention, has stemmed from that. So he's a bit of our guardian angel, really, and I really appreciate his support of us, really. And then, I always knew that the convention was kind of going to be the biggest thing that we could do. And it's not easy sometimes in pubs to get a Quo crowd. So to actually be able to play venues where you've got Quo crowds, that's got to be the dream.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it. Have you been to the convention before, or are you going completely for the first time?
Yeah, we are all virgins.
Well, that isn't what I asked, but
We're Quo convention virgins. I don't think any of us have been before. And that adds another kind of just layer of, because we're going as fans as well. So we're so lucky that we're going to be playing it, but we're actually going to go as fans as well. And I'll tell you what, that's one great thing about the boys in Quod. We'll get down the front and dance to all the other bands.
I think a lot of the other bands feel the same way, because everybody is fans at the end of the day, and that crowd is going to be incredibly loud. Like you say, if you went up and played the entirety of Hello in a public house, maybe you'd get people up for Caroline, maybe even Roll Over Lay Down. But once you get into And It's Better Now and things like that, they'd be like, what's this? Some kind of weird original psychedelic thing?
Yeah, we've done a lot of festivals, summer festivals, and we've got a kind of a festival set, playing all the hits. And I think that's really good sometimes, because I don't think people realise that some of these songs are Status Quo, because they're so familiar to people, but I don't think people have put two and two together. So we've got a festival set, and then we've got a specialist set, for Quo fans. And I think it's really important that you play to the audience that's there.
It's such a wide catalogue of tunes in that thing. I remember when the acoustic album #2 came out and they released That's a Fact, and people were saying, oh, they've ripped off George Michael and Faith. And you think, but this record is, at least 10 years older than the record they think is being ripped off. Quo did it first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so normally what I do with this podcast, trying to get better at it, asking in advance questions. Unfortunately, only one question came in.
I think I've seen it.
Well, that means you've had time to formulate an answer. So a certain person would like to know, ask Stephen who put their name forward to the convention and introduce them to Yvonne. That's the person who, one of the co-organisers of the event, when they played the Diamond. I bet he doesn't remember.
Well, I bet I do remember. The 2019 Diamond. Again, we were complete unknown. Nobody knew us, and afterwards we spoke to a few people, and they weren't going to come down because we were unknown. So why would we come down? But then I think they heard us. I thought, oh my God, actually that sounds all right, thankfully. So I do remember speaking to a young man called Terry McLean, who I believe is the person who put that question. And it really was a case of starting to meet people within this community. And I just spoke to Terry, and I'm sure Terry took me over. I said, I'd love to meet Yvonne. And I think, therefore, it was Terry that took me over, just to say hello, and to say, listen, if there's ever an opportunity, ever, to play the convention, please do think of us. And Terry's got a couple of good videos of us as well, actually, on his YouTube channel, if you like. So there you go. I think that's the answer, and he's got a lovely shout out now, so I'm sure he'll be thrilled.
Yes. He's pretty consistent with those shout-outs. But it's always nice to see enthusiasm in the Quo community. I'll ask you a question. This question's from me.
Okay.
So do you have... I don't know, do you take all your inspiration from John Coughlan when you're drumming, or do you kind of go, well, here's a bit of Jeff Rich, here's a bit of Pete Kircher? How do you go about it?
Well, that's a really, really good question. I think because I'm listening to the albums, John Coughlan is the man. I certainly we play a medley, and that's watching Pete Kircher. And actually, I watch Leon Cave's drum cam videos as well. Quite a lot, actually, to see how he's doing it when he's playing with Quo now. So I suppose the answer is mainly Coughlan from those albums. But Quo had a rich history of drummers, and really great drummers. And I'd so want to meet John Coughlan and get a photo with him. That's my one of my big aims of that weekend. So there, yeah, I think that's a pretty standard answer. I think I met Jeff Rich years ago as well. He did a drum workshop in an education setting. So I met him as well. So yes, great drummers, but obviously the main man, I suppose, is John Coughlan.
Well, Coughlan is the master of kind of that shuffle rhythm. Yeah,
which I love playing. So they're the songs I love to play. Can't say obviously he is the master of it, and I'm not necessarily saying that I would play exactly the same either. But those songs are absolutely the ones I love doing more than any, probably.
So I'll ask you one more question in this segment. Did you see the Frantic Four play at any point during their reunion tours?
Yes, I went to Hammersmith, and it was brilliant, and it was almost like everything you wanted it to be. It was a bit. It was a sad seeing how immobile Alan Lancaster was at times, but it didn't kind of matter. And I heard another podcast, one of these podcasts, and someone was saying just how special it was when they said Alan Lancaster and John Coghlan, and the place erupted. Actually, this might have been Gary's, the guy in my band, because he's right. Like, what other band could do that? Go back to the original setup. So I think good on Francis for doing that. I mean, I know there were issues around it and stuff, and I wish I'd gone in 2014. Because of course half the band aren't there now. But it was brilliant. You went to a Hammersmith, didn't you, as well?
I did, yes. I think it was the second night in Hammersmith.
I can't remember. Was it Saturday and Sunday they did?
Yes, I feel like it might have been, I don't know, maybe Saturday, Sunday night. So I can't remember. So long ago now. That's the unfortunate thing about it. Yeah.
2013. Yeah, I think it was a Sunday I went on. I can't remember.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do a section here of the podcast. I don't know whether you heard the one with Joachim.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Where I do Milestones, where I'm just going to quote an album title at you, and you just give me a couple of sentences what you think of that album. So we'll start with Piledriver, which of course is 50 this year.
Yes. Well, it's not my favourite, but it's one of the main ones that we concentrate on. Absolute banging songs on that. We've done many of them, actually. We are playing one of them, but I'm not going to say which one. But I might say it's going to be quite long when we play that at the convention. I think you can't beat "Don't Waste My Time." You can't beat "Big Fat Mama." Paper Plane, brilliant. Roundhouse Blues, brilliant. So it's up there. As I said, my favourite one is the one a couple of years later on the level. And I think that we talked about possibly doing Piledriver, but in the end, we've not seen each other enough and put the time in, because some of those songs are quite complicated. Some of those more kind of slower, less intense ones.
Yeah. So the live album, mid-70s.
Yes.
What's your take on it?
Oh my God! Well, it's the brilliant album, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, Jackie Linton. Those songs. It's difficult to find a better live album, really, I think. And certainly we've talked about playing it almost as, playing that whole live album as live. Yeah, I mean, it's just an absolute seminal piece of work, really. And hopefully Jackie will join us on stage at some point at the convention. He's been a really, really fantastic supporter of us as well. So hopefully that might happen. So yeah, I mean, what a brilliant album. I don't know what more I can say. I don't know how many more superlatives I can come up with, Jamie, I'm afraid.
Well, let's throw in one more. I'm just going to pick a random album just to get some light and shade.
I hope I know it.
Are you familiar with Perfect Remedy?
I'll be honest, not really. I've done my research here. I've researched 1982 because that's what you asked Joachim, and then Heavy Traffic as well.
Well, okay, yeah, go on. 1982. What's your thoughts on 1982?
I love Dear John, but that's all I really love from that album. But Dear John's just a fantastic song. I think I remember it being a kid, but the harmonies are so brilliant on that, and they're so tight as well. So that's what makes that certainly a standout track on that album, because they had a really, really prolific time of writing, and it didn't continue, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people would share that. But there's still great songs here and there, and I think, as Joachim said as well, if you play some of these songs in a live band, I think there's a different energy comes off them. So I'm really, really looking forward to watching some of the other bands play some of these later, late 70s, early 80s stuff. And, if we are, fortunate to be invited back to the convention in another year, I think probably if we've got a following, people know who we are, then I think we'd probably start to experiment as well with some of those. But yeah, from that album, Dear John, I love Dear John.
Yeah, I felt that some of those tracks just had the wrong execution. There was just a little bit Quo by numbers, if you will. Things like Young Pretender would be great if you're just strumming on a guitar in sort of a country and western kind of style. It has those kind of peaks to it. But when it's just what Francis has sometimes referred to as a juntung, I think is the noise he's used. A chugga chugga.
Yeah.
It just doesn't come off well, and a lot of tracks on that album seem to have that same thing about them.
I think production wise, it sounded, as they moved on through their career, it sounded like they just started to get cleaner and cleaner. And it's that more dirty growling sound, really, I think that kind of distinguished them early on. But let's start listening to some of these songs, start trying to play them and see how they come out.
And reinventing them in some way in a live setting.
I think so. Without keyboards as well. I mean, we haven't got keyboards, and I don't think there's any real talk about getting keyboards in. So I think sometimes that will change dynamics of songs. But as you say, there's such a body of work. It's quite unbelievable, really.
So what are your thoughts on Heavy Traffic then?
So my standout song from that is Creeping Up on You. And it's a kind of a more traditional shuffle and stuff. Again, it's a bit like 1982. I think that some of the songs, particularly lyrics, maybe haven't aged that well. I'm thinking of The Oriental. But again, an album with a couple of good songs. I wasn't particularly into Quo at that stage. Anyway, people move out, move in, different eras. But yeah, I'll keep it positive. Creeping Up on You, I like that one. I wouldn't mind trying to play that one.
Well, it's why they played that for many years in the live set, because it worked.
Yeah. Well, I get that.
I mean, the amount of time. How many times have you seen Quo live?
I think it's 3 times. I saw them at Southend, 2009-ish, and in fact, I as I was leaving the venue, Rick and Francis were coming straight out as well. So I actually managed to say hello to Rick, which is great when when you think about it. And then I saw the Frantic Four, and I think I've seen the Quo lineup whenever it was then twice, but I've not seen them post Rick Parfitt.
Is there any reason for that? Do you just feel?
No. I wanted to go to Southend recently. But I was away. I do quite a bit of travelling, and it's quite difficult to get. I think we had tickets for the London gigs before they were cancelled for COVID. So there's no reason, and it was going to be a great night out for us chaps in Quo'd to go and do that. So no, it's just a case of either unavailability of tickets or unavailability of me being able to go.
So you reckon you'll probably see them at some point if they sort of do another thing after the December tour?
Yeah. Oh yeah. If I can get tickets, hopefully, as I say, with all the rest of the boys, yeah, I'll definitely go.
So as a group, how excited are you for that convention?
Well, on a scale of 1 to 100, I think we're pretty much all at 100. It's an amazing opportunity to play that. It was as I say, when I joined, it was my dream to be able to do it. But as I said, without certain people along the way, we'd never have met Yvonnie. And so, yeah, we're very, very thankful for those opportunities. And of course, then the next one would be hopefully getting an opportunity to perhaps play some other conventions down the line. I know that there's a brilliant Mookvention And but if people don't know who you are or don't come and see you, then they won't know. But we're very confident that we're going to play well, and we're quite an energetic band, and we've kind of we do give it some, is the best way to say it.
Well, there are videos out there, excellent videos. I notice when you play sometimes, I know you're playing the whole of Hello, but obviously if they see you at any other time, when you play Mystery Song, you play the full version.
Kind of. We certainly we do that. We do the start. And I love that. And we played that in the last Diamond, and that was the first time we played that live actually. And so we definitely start with that, but we don't finish it as exactly the same. But I'm really thankful that you've noticed that we do that beginning bit. So I think that's, it sets the scene for the song, that kind of like that thing with just the tinkle on the cymbals and stuff. It just really sets it. So you're there at the convention, aren't you, Jamie? Well, you might be interested in what we're playing.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll be listening very intently, and I look forward to going to gigs. I'm always interested in how a crowd responds to that, and obviously playing that entire album. That there are going to be albums like Perfect Remedy, Ain't Complaining, even Rock Till You Drop, perhaps up to Quid Pro Quo, etc. That audience, people in that audience might not be familiar with, but if you're a Quo fan going to the convention, everybody knows what Hello is, or Piledriver, or On the Level.
Yeah. Well, there's I'll say there's method in the madness. It's not mad. It's an album that is fantastic, and we're just really thankful that we're able to do it, because we've all had to submit our set lists, of course, so there's no kind of doubling up of songs on the night. So we submitted it, kind of hoping, and thankfully Yvonne has come back and said, yep, you can do that. And I said, well, can we announce it as well? Again, first band on the Sunday, at least people will know what they're going to go and see, and I hope that they'll enjoy it, and I'm sure people will enjoy it. We love doing it. So
how are you preparing for it? I mean, I can see in video form you've got your drum kit in the background. Do you do a lot of rehearsal? I mean, at the moment you're at home because you have COVID.
I do have COVID, yeah, this weekend. Actually, rehearsal starts Tuesday. We've not seen much of each other. We've got a rhythm guitarist coming in, someone that as well, because he's been on the podcast. So we've got Dave Wood this year playing with us on rhythm guitar on Rick's watch. So our first rehearsal is on Tuesday. We're doing a bike festival at the end of June in Warwickshire, and we've got a few other dates as well. So yeah, rehearsals start very, very soon. But we've played this stuff before, and what's always really encouraging is when we get into a room, we're good enough musicians that we can just start belting it out, and it's just the fine tuning that you need to do. A bit like riding a bike, Jamie, really.
Do you think Dave will change the feeling, or do you think he'll just kind of slot in?
Oh, we've played with Dave last year as well, actually. We'll just make him sound exactly. We do care so much about the guitar sounds and the intensity and the tones, so Dave fits in brilliantly when he's not doing his Quo experience stuff, and so no, we're delighted to have him. He's a really nice lad, and we're going to be up to full Quo'd this year, definitely.
Well, I and many listeners who are going to that convention will be looking forward to seeing you. All the details will be in the description below, and how to book, etc. Thanks, Stephen, for being on the podcast today.
Jamie, thanks so much for having me on. and look forward to meeting you.